the several styles we want to look at today. So we have margins. Margin property is used to create space around elements outside of any defined borders. The margin, you can set either the top, the margin on the right, or the bottom, or the left. For this p tag, you have the different margins that have been defined here. As you can see, I'm going to show you here. This div element has a top margin of 100, a right margin of 150, and then the bottom and the left. So this is the div element that has been given the different styles in this case. I want to do away with this style, and then you see what is going to happen on that element. So if I click on the run, you can see the element goes back to the default setting or the place where it is supposed to be. To give a margin, there are four properties that you need to define. So when the margins are given in this way with these four properties, then this means the first 25 pixel is for the top. Then the second one is for the right margin. The third one is for the bottom, and the fourth one is for the left margin. The other way to give this is when you give three values. So you can see the first one, you give the 4 values for each of the margin. The other way is to give 3 values. The first value is for the top margin. Then the middle one, which is the second value, gives the right and the left margins, and the third one gives the bottom margin in this case. The other way of giving these values is to give 2 values. When you give 2 values for the margin, it is taken that the first value gives the margins for the top and bottom, and then the second value gives the values for the right and the left margins. And then finally, you can give only 1 value. So if you give 1 value for the margin property, then it is taken that that value that you've given is defining the margin for all the signs. So that is the top, and bottom, the left, and the right is going to be defined by that. And there are different examples which have been given in this case. Like if you click on this, you can see here. So for this element, this 25 is being applied for the top, for the bottom, for the right, and also for the left side. The padding property, this one generates space around an element's content inside of any defined borders. The way the padding is defined is the same way as we have looked for the margin. And this is an example here. Within the borders of this element is where you have the spacing being placed. You can also define it in 4 ways, where you give the 4 values for the top, right, bottom, and the left, or you can give 3 values, or you can have 2 values, or you can have 1 value that is going to be applied. The way you can style any text is to define the color. You can see an example here where we have the body color being defined as blue, and we have the color for H1 being defined as green in this case. So if I go to try it yourself, you're going to see that on this, this is an internal style or internal CSS, and it has the color that has been defined for the body to be blue. So the whole of the body here is going to be blue, but because we have defined a color for H1, so the H1 is going to take the color that is defined for it, which is now the green color. Something else you can define is also the background color for that text. We have background color here for H1 being black. So you can see the text here is white as indicated here, and then the background color for it is black. But for the whole of the body, the background is light gray, and then the color for text is blue. You can define the alignment, that is to determine whether it is left aligned, it is right aligned, it is centered or justified. You have alignment for center, you have alignment for left, you have alignment for the right. If we check on those alignment, these are the ones which are given here. So the H1 is centered, which is this. Then the one which is on the left is this, the heading 2, and the heading 3, which is to the right. This is the way the content is going to be given. So based also on your content and how you want it to be provided within your website, then you can keep aligning it to those different sites. The font property which are defined is the font family. You can also define the boldness of your font. You can also define the size, then the style of your text. So all these ones you can define in CSS. So you have the different font families which are given here. You have the serif, you have the sans serif, you have the monospace, and the different ones that you can use. These are just examples. Then the font families that you can use here, these are the ways in which you can define several of them. So checking on this, you can see they are defined on this side using the classes, and then they are shown how each one of them is going to appear. You can also change the style of the font. So this would mean that either you want it to be just the normal text, or do you want it to be italic? Do you want it to be oblique? I can show you an example here. So the first one gives the normal text style. This one gives one that is italic, and this one gives one that is oblique. Then you also have the font weight that you can define. You can decide whether you want your text or your font to be just normal, or you want it to be bold. You can also look at the font variant, which specifies whether or not the text should be displayed in small caps font. Google Fonts has hundreds of other fonts that are available for you to use, and you can see the examples which are given here. So this link is available online, and when you provide this link, this means all the Google fonts which are available there can be used within your page. And this is an example of a font family which is being used. And this is from some of the fonts which are given by Google. Let me show you an example. So this is an example. Now you realize this is not just the normal font family that we had, but this is a font family provided by this. So this CSS is the one that is providing now your content like this. If I comment or if I delete this, you're going to, and I run this, you see the font goes back to the normal that we were using for the website. And unless now you have that link which are available online. The way elements are available is either they can be block, or you can have elements which are inline. Example of block elements are given here. An example is a div, H1 all the way to H6. We have the P tag, the form, the header, footer section. All those are block elements. Then we also have what we call inline elements. And you have examples which are given there, like span, anchor tag, and the image tag. Now, an inline element does not start on a new line, and it only takes up as much width as necessary. Whereas a block element always starts on a new line and takes up the full width, which is available. That means it stretches out to the left and the right as far as it can. Now, these elements, the way they are displayed, whether it's the block element or the inline element, that one can be changed through the use of CSS. List element, which is supposed to be a block element, we want to display it in an inline way. So here is an example. The elements on the right hand side, they are displayed in inline. The reason for that is because we have defined a style here that is going to display those elements in an inline manner. So if I delete this and then I run, the elements are going to be displayed by default. You can also display inline elements as a block. An example is shown here. It's displayed in 2 lines to mean it has been displayed as block elements. That is the same way also for the something like an anchor tag. It can also be displayed as a block element by indicating that we want to display, and the style there is to have them as block elements rather than having them as inline elements. The other property or style I want to mention is the float. The float property specifies how an element should float. So this float property is being used to position and format content by letting them mainly either float to the left of the container that is going to have the element. Now the float can either be to the left of the container. It can also be to the right. It can also be, we can also use the property as, or the property value as none, which means in that case, it does not float and it will be displayed just where it occurs in the text by default. Or else you can even use the inherit property, where in this case, it's going to inherit the float value of the parent container. I'm going to show an example here how you can do that. So we have an image tag, and it is given the property value declaration of float right. So let's see what happens in this case. This image tag is contained within a paragraph. The text of the paragraph is going to be on the left, but the image is going to be on the right of that paragraph. So the image is now being contained within the p tag, and that's why it is going to the right of that paragraph, which is now the container tag. You can decide to, float it to the left, and if you float it to the left, now it's going to appear in this way. So you can see the image, in this case, is to the left, and the text has been now taken to the right of the containing paragraph. When we have no float, which is shown here, so with the no float, then what is going to happen is that the image is going to be displayed in the normal way, how it occurs, and then after that, the text is going to be displayed. JavaScript is the programming language of HTML and the web, and it is mainly used to add interactive content on your website. JavaScript is going to be used within the HTML. Different methods are going to be used for the JavaScript, and some of the methods that you use within the HTML is something like a get element by ID. The way to add JavaScript on your document is through the script tag. The script tag has an opening and a closing tag, which is given here. And in between the opening and the closing tag, you define the code that you want to execute. So this is whatever is given in here is the JavaScript code. An example here, you have the HTML document here. We have a p tag, and this p tag is given an ID of demo. This is the JavaScript code. So you have the document.getElement by ID. This method calls the inner HTML. So this inner HTML is what is within the document here, and it is assigned some text that we want to be displayed. So when this document is displayed, where the ID was, in this case the P, the content that is going to be displayed is whatever is assigned here, my first JavaScript. So JavaScript uses functions and events. A function is a block of JavaScript code that can be executed when called for. So a function can be called when an event occurs. You can add JavaScript within the head, or you can add it within the body section. You have a function that is defined within the head section, and that function is going to be called or invoked within the body using a button. Click on this. We have JavaScript in the head, which is given here, and you can see the paragraph now has been given a paragraph, and then we have a button which has the function. This function is defined here, my function, and we want, when we click on this function, to display paragraph changed, and we are going to do that one on click. If I click on this, try it, you can see the text has been changed from a paragraph to paragraph changed. The other way to add JavaScript function is within the body. Now, when it is added within the body, you can also either have it defined by a function which can be invoked, or you can have it displayed right away within the code without requiring a function. But also in this case, we have provided a button that is going to be invoked. So if I click on try it yourself, the content is given once again, but instead of us having the head section, the JavaScript code is placed within the body section. We have the same code, only now in this case, the button and the script have been placed at the bottom of the page and within the body section. So if I click on the try it yourself, you can see the code is displayed. The other way is to use an external script. We have it added in this case. So one, we first define an external script that we are going to define with a .js extension. After I have defined that file, then I'm going to add it within the head section using this. You can either add it within the head section, or you can also add it within, you can reference it also within the body. So those are the two ways also you can reference an external file, either within the body section or within the head section using this method. So script, then you have the source, my script.js. So this is the external file that you're going to be using in this case. And you can see it placed either within the head section, or you can have it placed within the body section. So an example here is this. So this one is placed within the body section. You can see here, and it is also within the script tag. And when I click here, try it, the paragraph is changed.